what quick advice would you have for, say, a manager or a supervisor who's leading a team of remote workers trying to keep their people connected to each other?
So I know that that presents an extra set of hurdles for managers. But I would just say at its core, remember that it's about trust. Obviously, if you're allowing people on your team to do this, there is a sense of empowerment there. There is a sense of trust. And as difficult as it is sometimes for managers, you do have to kind of relinquish that control and know that like you don't have to check in every 30 seconds like they are doing it. And if they're not, then that's, then up to you to initiate those maybe difficult conversations to see what needs to maybe be adjusted. Welcome back to the Money and More podcast. I'm Madison Foster.
And I am Ryan Bowling. It is a pleasure to be with you once again today. Madison, it's been a few weeks since we have done a record. Tell me a little bit, what have you been up to?
All of the holidays, through all that, and I'm ready to just tackle the new year.
Fantastic. Well, we talked off camera, but I am battling through some cold and flu symptoms, but hopefully I'm on the mend looking at the other side of this. But we will, of course, talk today about something that you, if you're sick, of course, you would work through at home, because we're talking about working from home today and how to be productive. So tell me, of course, in theory, there are plenty of positives, but the reality, of course, is there are distractions. You've got blurred boundaries. You have burnout. How do we work from home and stay on top of our game?
Absolutely. Well, just like anything else, there's pros and there's cons. And just kind of as like a disclaimer to our listeners, for those of you that may rely on us for financial advice, even though we are primarily a financial literacy podcast, we also do want to touch from time to time on lifestyle and different things that we also think could be beneficial to our listeners. And a healthy, holistic lifestyle can really benefit every area of life, including your finances. And we will touch on some financial benefits to working from home as well. So just stay tuned, but it'll all tie together. So today, though, we're going to break down some simple and realistic ways to stay productive while you are working from home or working remotely. And so whether you're a hybrid worker, you are fully remote, you work in a different state, whatever the case is, hopefully you'll walk away from this today with some ideas that you can like truly use and apply into your workplace.
Yeah, I'm glad you set it up that way. Because I have always believed in my personal life and even in my professional life that all of this stuff matters, and just having a healthy, holistic life pays dividends for your finances. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I'm glad we're touching on it. Hopefully our listeners are too. So start at the very, very beginning, and that, of course, is the foundation. So what's you have experience with this. Your position allows you, for the most part, to be able to work from home. So start with that dedicated workspace, because I think everything flows from that when you're talking about this subject.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. So it definitely, the foundation, like you mentioned, starts with your workspace and making sure that it's consistent and you have an area of your home or wherever you work from that is specifically meant for working from. So where you're actually working from, in your home, in your apartment, wherever, it really does matter. And there are some factors too that you can take under consideration to maybe make some modifications. So of course, maybe for someone that lives with a roommate, that's going to require you to be in a room that you can shut a door or maybe put a sign on it and say like, hey, these are my work hours, or just maybe stay out of a shared living space. If you live alone, not so much of an issue, but it's still really important that you do have somewhere that can provide a quiet environment and try to minimize distractions for you. But at the core, it's just important to have a dedicated space that like, this is where I work from. Even if it's at your house, it's like, this is my work area and that's what it's used for.
So you went from, I remember this from years ago, you went from working in a primarily office environment to kind of this hybrid work from home hybrid model. What was the very first thing you did when you decided that this was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, I will just say, like, I feel extremely privileged and lucky that I do have a position that allows me to work primarily from home, but also I've worked from hotel rooms. I've worked when I've attended conferences. I can kind of work on the go. And then I also have the luxury that I work close enough to the office that I can go in a day or two a week. And so it's been perfect for me. I don't know that I could ever go back to being fully in office all the time. Like I really, really thrive under this. But I think when I did make that transition, when it was offered to me in this position and I decided to try it out, the biggest thing I did was just kind of try and make it like fun and exciting. So I found a space in my apartment where I record the podcast from for you guys is actually where I have my work from home space. And it's like a little alcove in the living room of my apartment, actually. It's a nice little cozy spot, and I have a desk that fits perfectly into it up against the wall. Not facing a TV, I'm not facing any screen, but my laptop. And I kind of, I put some decorations up on the wall around it. I got some nice, like a lamp and a couple different things to really make it like my own. But still, professional and have all the equipment I need, but not take up, half of my apartment. And so that was really the first thing I did was how can I kind of reorganize and how can I integrate this to where it is a dedicated workspace, but it's not, I don't feel like my entire apartment is taken over. I wasn't trying to like work from my bed or anything. Not saying I've never done that, but like generally I would say don't. So yeah, that was probably the first thing is just kind of getting a good setup that works for me that now it's just like seamless and I can just plug in and get going on my day.
I think that's a wonderful way to approach it, to have that dedicated space that is your own. It feels like your work environment where obviously it can be part of another room, but it is still set up and situated to help sort of maximize and influence your productivity. So obviously, once you've got that space figured out, the next piece really is in how you structure your day. So without having a commute, what's the start and end of your day look like? How does that all work?
Yeah, so it's really imperative, and I'll stress that multiple times throughout this episode that you do have some boundaries and some degrees of separation, and that is to benefit every party involved. That's to benefit yourself, protect your mental health. That is to the benefit of your employer. But it's really important that you do set those boundaries both for yourself and with your workplace. I will say that's definitely a drawback and something that maybe it takes some people time to get used to is that you do have to kind of find that balance and still make sure that your home at the end of the day when you're off work still feels like a home and a place that you can relax in and be safe in, but also that it can be that professional setup and that you are ready to get up and go and work as well. So the biggest thing for me and for most remote workers that I know is just like consistency and having a good routine that works for you. So for a lot of people that may mean some sort of morning ritual. So it's important regardless of where you work from that you get up around the same time every day during the work week if you can. And then when you do that, doing something that kind of signifies you're like up out of bed ready to start the day, whether that's to go for a run or take a shower or have a nice breakfast for yourself, read a book quickly, like whatever that looks like for you, kind of just to signal to your brain and to yourself that like we're starting the day and we're going to start slowly adjusting into work mode. And then another thing I can say that goes along with that is to take your lunch away from your desk. It's really easy to just kind of go run and get food from the kitchen and then place it at your desk at home or at the table or wherever you work from. But that really doesn't give the separation that you need in order to feel like you're truly getting a break if you're sitting there and still kind of like working. And I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. But it's very crucial for a lot of different reasons to kind of have that separation between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those moments to reset are important. I know I do it, even though I work in the office, I still do it, but I think the same applies to this situation where you take that lunchtime to sort of reset your brain, allow your body that time to adjust, and then get back into the maybe the afternoon session if you're obviously your day situated like a normal 8 to 5 would be. So for me personally, I prefer to work in the office, but there are definitely times when I have to work from home. And the hardest part for me is always managing the distractions. So I feel like when I'm in the office, my distractions are minimized. However, there are people, my wife is an excellent example of this. When she's in the office, actually, her distractions are more numerous because there are people who come in, they're constantly talking about things, and so she can't concentrate on the work that she needs to get done. I feel like I'm the opposite of that. And when I'm at home, the distractions tend to creep in. How do you manage the distractions in your work from home environment?
Yeah, well, I will say I think I fall somewhere between you and your wife. I'm definitely guilty of getting distracted. I mostly in the sense of for me when I'm at home, I really like to multitask. Which is fine if that just means like maybe having a little laundry going while I'm working. But then it starts to be easy to be like, well, I can just get this done, and I'm like, no, I'm at work. But I will say I do kind of echo what she said. I do feel like since I am in the office somewhat infrequently, I do get more distracted there just because I'm fortunate to work with a bunch of awesome people that I'm friends with and that enjoy seeing me. So when I come in, it's a lot of like catching up and coming into my office. And then by the time I know it, it's like 5, 6 o'clock, and I don't know how much I really accomplished other than getting caught up on everyone's news of their life. So I think it's just really important to find the balance. And everyone is, of course, different because, like you said, I know you thrive working in the office. But I would just say there's a few key things. So when you are working from home, as I mentioned, part of minimizing distractions starts with your setting. So making sure you're somewhere comfortable, quiet, and also lighting is important too. Natural light can really help you focus. It can help boost your mood, but just having lights on and not just working in the dark obviously is like a good step. Um, but the biggest thing for me is just remembering like if you are one of the people fortunate enough to get to work from home, um whether you like that or not, you do have an ethical responsibility to your workplace to still do what they're paying you to do even if they're not there watching you, and that is the expectation there. And I know with a lot of workplaces, if that doesn't get met, sometimes that's a privilege that can be taken away. So that's not something that I take lightly. I know that like in our dynamic, you trust me to get my stuff done even though you don't see me for days at a time, and I appreciate that I don't feel micromanaged and that I'm able to get all my stuff done kind of like on my own terms, but that you can always count on me to know that it will be done. So having that responsibility to management, to my workplace, is not something that I take lightly. And I think that that's the biggest thing for people to remember, is that just because you do get to do this, that's not just like a free pass to goof off. um and then of course there are distractions that are external. So it's so easy to be distracted by electronics. You have your phone constantly all day. And that's something that, I mean, people in the office deal with as well as distractions. And especially now that we have smartphones and cell phones, like it's rough, but particularly at home. I know for me, there's a couple times where I've wanted to work from the couch instead, but then I find myself like putting on a TV show for background noise. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, well, I'm just invested in this show. It's not just background noise. And so then my attention is a little bit pulled, and I'm like, and this is why I work at a desk. But it's just important to kind of first of all set boundaries with your people. So let people know like, hey, even though I'm working from home, you can't just pop by, like we can't hang out unless it's my lunch break, and like these are my working hours. So unless it's an emergency, or something time sensitive, like maybe just wait till I get off to call or text me about it, or just know that my responses will be delayed if you do. Um, and I would say just a big thing is to mute any non-essential notifications. So for most of us, that's going to mean like social media, maybe like marketing emails, different things like that we really don't need to see popping up in the middle of the workday. Mute those. And try also really hard to be responsible with your internet usage. In today's day and age, a lot of roles do require going online, but just make sure that you're staying focused and on task and not just browsing the internet, even though it's really easy and accessible to do. I will say it takes a lot of self-discipline, but the more you can minimize for yourself, the better it will be to kind of help with those distractions and set yourself up for success. So those would be the biggest tips that like I found, and just kind of a reminder that it's not about eliminating all distractions, because that's not realistic and that's not possible for any of us, but just making sure that you are managing them. And again, that will set yourself and your workplace up for success.
Oh no, that's fantastic advice. And yeah, something I think we have to deal with is in this, modern age where just our access to all this information is so prevalent. It's so easy for those distractions to creep in there. And you've been scrolling on your phone for 10 minutes before you even realize you haven't been productive. So um, I think that's sound advice for sure. The other thing that I think becomes increasingly difficult, and we probably found it at the onset of this work from home sort of change that we've experienced since the COVID pandemic is staying connected to your team, to your work, to feel like you are not isolated from maybe what else is happening around your company. So what advice, what experiences, what challenges have you faced in staying connected while working remotely?
Yeah, it does get tricky sometimes feeling like, maybe I'm out of the loop or I'm not as in the know because I'm not there. But I will say, in like my specific circumstance, I feel like we're a part of a pretty well-oiled machine. Everyone on our team is basically on their own spectrum as far as how much they work in the office and how much they work from home. We all kind of are somewhere on there, but none of us are the same. And so I know that there's others that work from home even more than me. And then there's some on my team that work from home less than I do. And so I think it kind of balances out and I never really feel left out, but it is very important from a productivity standpoint. Again, just that I am still doing check-ins. So, I'm using the tools at my disposal to message colleagues and management and different things, somewhat regularly. There's different tools that we use internally to stay on task that has like to-do lists and due dates, and everyone has access to, so we can all kind of collaborate in there together. And then if it is one of the rare times that I truly cannot come into the office for a week or two, those are the times especially that I really try to prioritize maybe video calls as opposed to just an audio call. So that way I can really engage with people. My team can see my face. I can see them. We can kind of like have a discussion that way. So just really using, not only technology, but just whatever tools you and your workplace have at your disposal to make sure that you are taking the initiative to stay connected and to stay plugged into your workplace.
Yeah, so I'll take a moment here, and of course, we're not being, paid. There are no ads that run for this, but I think our collaboration as a team changed dramatically when we went over to Monday.com for our workflow systems. Of course, we had previously been on Basecamp, so we've had some experience with that. We obviously can collaborate through tools like Microsoft Teams and email. So what have you found has been helpful in collaborating with your team as far as the tools that we have available to us?
Yeah, I would say the three largest ones are ones that you just listed off. So Monday.com is what we use as kind of our hub for our team and our department to kind of put all of our tasks into one place, assign them out, make comments back and forth. We can really collaborate in real time on there as well as work chronologically by due date. And that's something that is very helpful for me as a type A person, because that's just how I like it done. And I know that we have some type B people on the team and they like that because it helps keep them on task and they can visualize kind of like, what do I have next on the horizon? So I think that's a big thing for our department in particular. And I know other people that I've spoken to in the professional workplace have found success with a system similar to that as well. And then of course, just your traditional email. That's how most other people in the company outside of my department reach me. And if it's something that's not time sensitive, that's my preference, because I can check it from anywhere. I can check it whenever and get back to them still in a timely manner. And then of course, like you mentioned, like Microsoft Teams or like a Jabber or one of those types of apps where you can instant message people, that's really best for when it's in the middle of the workday and you need maybe a fast response or someone needs something quickly from you and you just need to chat in real time. I definitely use that every single day.
Awesome. So I got one more thing on this part of the subject before we move on. So, you talked about yourself being that person who works from home, but what quick advice would you have for, say, a manager or a supervisor who's leading a team of remote workers to help that person maintain that sense of connectedness to their team? What advice do you have for that person in that role, trying to keep their people connected to each other?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I will just say at its core, because I used to be in management and I didn't manage people that worked remotely. They were all in the office or in the workplace with me. So I know that that presents an extra set of hurdles for managers. But I would just say at its core, remember that it's about trust. Obviously, if you're allowing people on your team to do this, there is a sense of empowerment there. There is a sense of trust. And as difficult as it is sometimes for managers, you do have to kind of relinquish that control and know that like you don't have to check in every 30 seconds like they are doing it. And if they're not, then that's, then up to you to initiate those maybe difficult conversations to see what needs to maybe be adjusted. But as far as staying connected, I think just find a cadence that works for you and your individual employees because everyone is different. Everyone needs a different level of involvement and supervision, and just kind of make sure that you are checking in with them on how things are going. Is there anything I can do for you? And then also just remember that just because you may have an employee that works remotely, they're still a human being that, you care about. So make sure that if you are, talking to them, it's not 100% about work, because I know that can sometimes be tricky for remote workers when the only time they hear something from anyone on their team is when they need something or something needs done. But then when you go in the office, it's like very easy to have those more like personal conversations. So just remember that you do still need to like be a human at the end of the day, and that the people that are working from home still want to check in, still want to talk to you about, day to day, just as much as anyone in the office, and kind of find the cadence and the rhythm that works for you and your team.
Thank you for touching on that. So obviously, if you are working from home, you are probably setting your own schedule. If that's the case, talk a little bit about the importance of time management and self-discipline and where that falls in this work from home situation.
Absolutely. Time management and self discipline are really the backbone of this type of setup in a professional sense. So that is something that's like really not optional. I know that can kind of scare some people off if those maybe aren't their strengths, but fortunately, they are things that we can fine tune and you can learn to be a little bit better at time management. It just, again, is about what works for you specifically. So, like we just touched on in the last segment, it's awesome if you can or you find it's helpful to utilize technology to keep track of deadlines and deliverables and different things like that. If you are one of the people that is still old school, like making a list on pen and paper, nothing wrong with that. That's great too. Just kind of have it all consolidated in a place that you can keep track of everything. And I would just say the same as if you're in the office, but even twofold if you're at home. Prioritization is more important than just staying busy. So we don't want to just get things done to get them done. We want to make sure that we're doing them with quality and with intention. And that includes being intentional with your time and how you're spending it, setting goals for your day, for your week. What do I need to get done for work this week? What do I need to make sure to do by the end of the day today? And then that for a lot of people means sometimes utilizing like time blocking and like, okay, as soon as I get up from the first 2 hours of my day, from 7:30 to 9:30, this is what I'm going to work on. Then I'm going to give myself a 15-minute break away from the screen. And then for the next 2 hours, I'm going to work on this. And that can be really helpful. And again, just kind of having that like visually laid out for you for your day can make things seem much less daunting. And you kind of have, you have a plan to stay on track. And if something emergency does come up, then it's okay. You can just kind of roll with it. That is one thing that I had to learn. That's not necessarily the way I'm naturally wired, is to just be super go with the flow. I really like having a plan and sticking to it. But if you are being responsible and smart about time management throughout the day and throughout the week, the goal, of course, is that you get to a place that you are caught up or ahead or whatever that looks like, so that when those time sensitive or emergency situations do come up, it's not the end of the world and you can slot those in and still maintain productivity for your day and it doesn't derail everything.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads naturally into sort of your mental and your physical well-being. So having that sort of guided structure to your day, I mean, it can help with productivity, but also obviously it can lead to some pretty quick burnout as well. So, what are some strategies maybe you have found that listeners can utilize to help prevent burnout when they're working from home? Because that's a real issue as well.
It really is. And I will just say to any of our listeners, wherever you work from, if you are feeling burnout, pay attention to that feeling. Just know that you're valid in that. Maybe try and do some identification as to what the root cause is, but don't just ignore it. And that doesn't mean just quit your job, but maybe do some things to adjust and maybe help with that. And so I will say, when I started the transition to work from home, I feel like in some areas of my health, it honestly helped me and I like it. But then there was definitely some challenges I faced in other areas that I had to learn to kind of roll with and overcome. So I will just say, one thing, and this was one that I struggled with in the beginning, is setting those mental boundaries. it's just not really in my nature to like tell people no or not want to be available to help people at all times. But I did have to kind of have a tough conversation with myself, like a year or two in, that if I am making myself available literally 24/7 and doing everything all the time, whether I'm in person or not only is it not feasible, it's not fair to me, it's not fair to my workplace, because oftentimes they weren't asking me to spread myself that thin. I was just choosing to do it in the name of trying to be helpful. And at the end of the day, that's not beneficial to either party. So just making sure that you are of course, doing what is within your job title to do. I know for some people that are salary, that does require you to have a little bit more availability, maybe on the weekends or your off time, than someone that maybe like punches in and out. But that does not mean that you are available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like you can still set some boundaries, again, whether that's with yourself, like I had to do, or with your workplace, if they're maybe taking advantage of some of those, and just not making yourself available at all times. It's incredibly important for our mental health that you do have some time each day that is not consumed with work, and that you can kind of like focus on fostering your hobbies and maybe have connections with friends and loved ones, and those things are incredibly important to your overall health. And so it starts with that, and then there's also some physical implications as well. I know for me, I found that in the beginning of working from home, I became much more sedentary than I ever had before and than I was accustomed to. And that's not something that I was comfortable with. So now I've made adjustments to make sure that that's not a struggle for me anymore. So, whether that's joining a gym like I did, and then you can go after work or before work. Another thing that I do pretty regularly when it's not freezing cold outside is, every so often, every couple hours, go for a walk outside and just kind of take a lap. It gets some fresh air into your lungs. You get to see some sunshine. You get out there and you get moving. It's really important for our body and our health that you're not just sitting in one spot, immobile for hours and hours a day. And that's something that I know even some older people in my life that are maybe in good health now have attributed that to the fact that like the less sedentary you are in that type of situation, if you are able to not be, that can be really helpful. So whether you are at the office or you're at home, just making sure that you're getting up every so often and just, getting some blood flowing, getting moving is really important. And then a final piece of that I would say is, if you're working from home, you have even less excuse, honestly, to order out or to go get food from restaurants. I'm always a huge advocate to my coworkers to bring your lunch from home. If you work in the office, that's something that I do just because I'm cheap and I don't want to waste money on like going out. Not that that's not okay to do sometimes, but we've also talked about that can add up quick. But when you're home, especially, um, it's kind of rough to justify ordering food or going out to get food when you're literally oftentimes feet from your kitchen. And so just making sure that you are stocking that fridge and the pantry with nutritious snacks and with fresh fruits and veggies. And if you are someone like me that maybe cooking isn't your favorite thing in the world and you don't want to take the time to sit there and prep and cook a whole meal in the middle of the day, meal prepping is awesome. Take your Saturday or Sunday and just take an hour or two, plan out a few meals and get them all ready to go and just stuck in the fridge. That's really, really, really a great productivity hack. It's a time saver, and it makes sure that you're staying on track as far as eating healthy and making sure that you are taking those lunch breaks.
Yeah, for sure. So in the office, of course, our company has been gracious enough to give us a few perks like raising desks. Have you considered putting in a standing desk in your at-home setup, or have you considered, like, I know some people will do maybe like a walking treadmill also, so that they can stay a little more active, because they're not forced to get up and walk around the office. Sometimes you do when you're here. Have you thought about doing some of that stuff?
I have, and I have already done them somewhat. So I didn't want to spend the money for my home setup on a standing desk. So I do just have a stationary chair here that I use. However, I did find a really good deal online for one of those walking pads you mentioned a couple years ago. I bought it and it's been fantastic. And what I love about mine is, and again, just kind of a free plug. It's just one that I found on Amazon, but I love that it can be used as a walking pad, and I got one that has a laptop stand on it. so I can have it at like a reasonably slow pace to where I am still able to walk but keep moving while I'm typing and doing things, and it's not like feeling like multitasking, it's just keeping me moving. But then also that table comes off and I can use it as just a regular treadmill when I'm off work and if it's too cold to go run outside, and that has been awesome for me. And it really felt like an excellent use of that money because I can use it during the work time and for my personal time. And so that was a no-brainer. It was pretty affordable, honestly. And that's been awesome. So if you do have the luxury of being able to afford something like that, or maybe your workplace offers some sort of home office reimbursement for some of those things or fitness equipment, I would definitely take advantage. Little things like that can be so helpful, and they're really just like out of sight, out of mind until you have them. And then it's like, it's a game changer.
Yeah. No, I was absolutely going to say something just like that, where if your company offers some sort of reimbursement or assistance with getting some of those things set up in your work from home situation, absolutely ask them about it. Go to HR or accounting and see what may be available to you so that you can take advantage of that stuff. And then that sort of segues right into our last segment for this topic, the financial benefits of working from home. Because obviously, you're listening to this probably because you want some help and some advice on your finances. So, what financial perks would you say come with working remotely?
Yes, that is a big one for me, that there are a lot of financial advantages that I've found working from home. So the biggest, kind of like we talked about, I do feel like I eat out less because I do just have food that here that I can eat from home. I save money and mileage on my car for not having to get gas, not commuting into the office as much. That's been awesome. Not putting that wear and tear on my car, not having to spend as much on gas every week. And then I know for some people, depending on your specific situation, there are also sometimes tax benefits and different deductions you can claim for home office expenses. That is something that the IRS does look at and sometimes I'll say reward you for. So if you are in one of those setups that qualifies, just look into it and see, because if you do have a job where you are primarily working from home, sometimes you can get a tax break for that. So that's another good one that some people don't even know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that I think brings us to the end of this episode. So why don't you go ahead and bring us home? Give us a quick recap on what we just talked about on working from home.
Yeah, well, there are lots of different strategies to help with it. If you are just starting out and feeling kind of discouraged, it doesn't feel like the best fit for you, I would just say stick with it. Try to make some of these small adjustments that we talked about. Give it a little time. And if it is just truly not for you, then maybe just have one of the conversations with your employer if you have that type of relationship and if you have the option. Maybe work from home just isn't for you. You can go back into the office. For a lot of people, though, I know that it is a great perk that a lot of people, myself included, like. So just make sure that you are keeping those open lines of communication with your supervisor and your team. Make sure that you're setting those boundaries, preventing burnout, making sure you're keeping your body moving, active, and just remember that while productivity is key and it is your responsibility to stay productive, working from home isn't about being productive every single second of every single day that you are home. And that's not going to benefit you or your workplace. So just make sure that you are creating systems for yourself that support focus, balance, and well-being. And that's really going to set you up for success.
All right, fantastic. Well, I feel like this is a win because I made it through this episode without a single cough, without a single sniffle. So maybe I am on the other side of my illness here. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I was gonna say, yeah, I hope you get to feeling better. I hope whatever you got going on is better by the next time we meet. So I know myself and all the listeners are sending well wishes your way.
Well, thank you so much. If you have enjoyed this podcast episode, please be sure to give us a like or a subscribe. If you want to drop us any comments, wherever it is that you are listening or watching us, feel free to do that, and we will talk to you next time.
See you next time. Bye. The Money and More podcast is owned by OMB Bank. OMB and its affiliates do not provide legal, tax, or accounting advice. You should consult your legal and/or tax advisors before making any financial decision.